Hello and welcome to the Low-Code Café. This is the episode 183 for April 2nd, 2025. Today we're announcing the Plantain App 127 beta launch. We'll be talking about the various features. We'll be demonstrating lots of features. We'll be talking about the various breaking changes, features, enhancements, bug fixes, security, cosmetic, things that are made obsolete. So lots going on in this episode. Joined today by, I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plantain App, joined today by Bogdan Latescu, CEO for Plantain App, and Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager. This is an event that we do on Wednesdays, every other Wednesdays, where we talk about our product and demonstrate various features from it. We are glad that you're here with us. We record all these and put them on YouTube, so you can get access to them at youtube.com/plantainapp, and you can subscribe and hit the alarm bell so you know as soon as we post them, which is usually the next day. There are a few links that might be of interest to you, and Patrick will put them on the chat just in case you want to click them. But we do another event on Fridays, the Low-Code Campfire. That happens Friday this same hour, and that happens every Friday. So if you want to talk about anything you saw today or help get involved in the beta release, there'll be an opportunity for you to talk about it there with us. We also have, we've talked in past weeks about the Plantain App installer, and so we'll provide the link to that in case you want to demo, set up an installation of it on premises and try out Plantain App. And then finally, there's a link there where you can learn more about the plans that we offer. With that, I will ask Bogdan to step forward and start talking about our beta 127 launch.
Daniel, hello everyone. We are finally here. A major release is almost out. Before we release it publicly to everyone, we'll run this beta, and everybody is welcome to join. And in the beta, you'll be able to see everything that's new. Many of those things they will show today. I will just speak about the big items that will come part of this release. And I will start with the workflow builder enhancements. So as many of you already know, in 126, we started this new UI for the workflow builder. That was just the top of it. We completed that transition, but also behind the scenes, a lot of new capabilities emerge out of that. You'll see much better, cleaner UI, token autocomplete, as you got to see it in automation and NEPA builder. But also other small enhancements like the ability to order parameters, because that makes it a lot more clearer when you invoke a workflow. What's the logical way to look at the parameters? You'll see things like a new settings tab where, if you recall, we had all these pop-ups, one for namespace, one for workflow name, and so on. These are all now in the same place, so consistent with the rest of the UIs and easier to manage. Also, very nice thing now is the change detection. So meaning every time you touch a workflow, if you try to close it, if you try to navigate to a different page, it will prompt you that, look, you have unsafe changes. We don't want you to lose them unless you want to discard them, of course. So you'll see overall, we spent time to improve this developer experience around the workflow. And one of the features that doesn't sound much, but to me, it really helps me is the ability to save data in the test. Meaning if I keep saving the same workflow, every time I test it, I don't have to fill the parameters over and over again. The last test that I ran will already be pre-filled. Even if I go to different pages, I come back later to test it, I still have my last test there. So many of this kind of improvements, small things and big things, that we hope to make a much better and productive workflow building experience. Another area where we started investing more and more, and the big vision for us around versioning, it's always to get to that point where you can do a one-click deployment from one environment to the other through the versioning. So we are doing incremental steps there. Major investments are being made at the moment, some of which already made it into the product. And I would say the big milestone for us right now, which is an experimental feature in 127, is the ability to see all the versions of a workflow that you committed and be able to roll back to any of those versions. So this is something that we did for workflows, but it will follow to do it similarly for other things like for entities, for automation, for API, for pages, for all kind of low-code components. So this will give granular ability to roll back, or even we also had the ability to get that workflow as a copy, so then you can compare side by side. This is how it looked, I don't know, 3 months ago. This is how it looks today. You can test it out side by side. So this is a big breakthrough for us, getting into this direction of restoring to versions. And once we complete that, the next big milestone will be to move all of this configuration from one environment to the other as well, in a much simpler way than we are able to do today. Other things in the versioning area was around the improving error handling and messages to make it really clear what the problem is, what you need to do, because this is usually the case when more than 2 systems are involved. In this case, we have the Git that's part of the equation, which is of course an external provider, and then we have our microservice that does all this versioning, and then we have the Plantanet instance that knows what you did and what changes you did. So putting it all together can result in many failing points, and that's why error reporting is so important, so you know exactly what the problem is and how to fix it. And I think another thing there was the ability to, we improve how file names in the Git repository are named. One of our points to transition towards having a ability to migrate from one environment to another is to get rid of integer IDs wherever possible. And an increment in this release was to use module names instead of module IDs in the Git repository, in the versioning. So that will make it agnostic to whatever exists in a particular environment, and it will only be based on the GUID, global ID format, which is guaranteed to be portable. Thanks, Dale. Next slide. Also part, and one of the biggest parts of this release, which is not visible right away, but we'll roll it out in the next couple of weeks, is new licensing options. So the old licensing still works, so nobody will be affected. These are some new licensing that come with some different way of licensing, in the sense that we separated runtime license from developer license, meaning runtime license is all you need to run a system without changing it. Developer plans are for developers that go in, change the system, have some developer productivity features, and also have various level of support through our support desk. And there is a free community tier, so nobody will be asked to transition to a paid model when they move to this plan. Instead, it can be an add-on. Also part of this, and we presented it in the last Low-Code Café, is the starter plan, which is a low entry point into Plantanet. So starter plan comes with some core features like the entity builder, forms, listings, tabs, and core tokens. So these are more than enough to build very simple applications. Like you see in the last Low-Code Café, they'll build one, and we could get very far with the starter plan. And then on the developer side, as I mentioned, it will be the free tier that is mostly with community level support, so meaning community forums that you know, community.plantanet.com. And then we have a professional tier, which is through our support desk, and then enterprise, where it's mostly about SLA agreements. So all of this will be rolled out in the next couple of weeks, so it will be available to everyone, new or existing customers that wish to transition to these models. And then many other things. We already spoke about the marketplace also in the last Low-Code Café, which is where we are going to start publishing extensions to Plantanet. Now we are working on publishing templates, so application templates, so you don't have to start with a blank Canva anymore. So all of this will be available to the marketplace, and ultimately we'll open it up to the community to publish their own packages, their own extensions. So if you are interested in this, reach out to us, because it doesn't hurt to start the conversation early. And many other things, security fixes, bug fixes, a couple of breaking changes, as Dale mentioned. But I will let Dale showcase some of these cool things that we built. So you don't just hear me speaking about it, you see them, how cool they are in action. Thanks, Dale. The floor is
Absolutely.
yours.
Thank you. Along the way, and I forgot to mention, but we monitor the webinar chat and the question and answer session. So if you have questions for me or for Bogdan as we go along, feel free to add them in. We'll try and answer them as we go. And so let's go on from there. We have, and this Bogdan's slides are much better than mine. Mine is pretty straightforward here. We're going to cover these breaking changes and the features enhancements. We're going to talk about all these different pieces. The tool I'm going to use is we have a release list, and so we'll be working through this release list that we'll just kind of pick out things to talk about. There's an awful lot in this release. So let's dig in on that. At the very end, I'm going to talk about how to be part of the beta. So if you're anxious to get started and know how to load this on your systems, not your production systems, and take a look at the features, try them out for yourself, make sure you're having a good upgrade experience, all of that. I'm going to talk about that at the end, how to participate in our beta. Okay, so this document, and you'll see one very similar to this, and I'll show it off at the end as well. But this is organized into breaking changes and then features and some other things, other areas as well. We're going to start out with the breaking changes, just to be very clear about what is going to happen. Breaking changes, things that are definitely different from one version to the other that need some attention. So our minimum DNN version requirement went up to version 9.11.2. We have a documentation page that shows the compatibilities. On the minimum side, this minimum increased slightly. Most people are, I think, already on 9.11. A lot of people are interested in getting to version 9.13, and that's supported now. That is where we tested out all of our work with 127. So that's the good side of the equation. If you've been waiting to get to version 9.13, with this update, you'll now be able to do that. Another pretty big one is that the minimum SQL version, the requirement was updated to SQL Server 2016. Previously, it was SQL Server 2012. And since that's anything lower than SQL Server 2016 is now out of support from Microsoft, we're moving our minimums to reflect that as well. So that's probably going to impact some of our clients, making sure that you update the SQL Server. So then there's another one, and this one I'll try and demonstrate here in just a minute. But this is something that may impact you if you've been using our workflow builder. That there was an unpublished feature of the workflow builder that we've that wasn't working as it should, and we've made it so that it works as it should to protect you from accidental changes to your variables. So we can take this as a spot to dive in. So I'm going to be demonstrating the solution, not the. Let's see if I can find a. If you were, I have two workflows here. One is called Echo, and if you run it, and now I'm just going to hit on one of the things that Bogdan mentioned for convenience. When you test a workflow interactively like this, the last value that you use is coming up automatically. So this has a 100 in here because that's the way I ran the test the last time I ran it. But the echo workflow, when you run it, it just creates an output value of 100. It's the of whatever you put into it, that's what comes out of it. And this is just demonstrating that inputs and outputs and things like that work. And if I run it for anything else, 1, 2, 3, 4, we get an output value of what it's just a straightforward workflow. While we're here, though, I'm just going to mention some of the other features that were also done. So notice we have these icon, this information icon. Whatever the description information that you put on a parameter is now showing in this interactive workflow, so you can use those to remind yourself what's supposed to happen there. And in the same way, this is input parameter, and so let's show that off a little bit. So we have the input parameters. It has an in value, default value, and then this description was here. So this description is showing up on the icon, and on the output, echo of the input parameter. That's what's showing up on the out value parameter. So that's just a kind of a nice to have, a very good convenience item. So again, we just have this simple workflow that has no processing. It's just we are outputting as an out value anything that came in as the in value. So very simple workflow. Bogdan mentioned change protection, and it's asking, are you sure you want to leave? I don't want to make any of my changes here. So back to the breaking change, I have another workflow that I'm going to edit, and what it does is it executes that echo workflow. We're passing it an input, and we're getting an output, and so that's just as we would expect it. We can test this, and if we say Dale as the input, we're going to get nothing as the output, because in this execute echo, I didn't wire this. So this is the area of the breaking change. Previous to version 127, this would have worked. Every call to a workflow that had outputs, if you named the outputs like this would create, the output would be stored in my variable, or whatever it is that you named it. But if you didn't provide anything, this out value the output value would be put into a token called out value. That is so implicit and so hard to see. We don't want to inject that. We don't want to return that value without telling you where it goes. So that's the nature of this change. If this is probably not going to affect very many of you, but if you have relied on this behavior where outputs from a workflow are created automatically, then you're going to need to edit your workflows, and anything that you need to specify exactly where it goes. So in this case, I'm going to wire this to out value, and now when I run it and give it an in value, the out value is coming out as expected. So that's a little bit of nuance and a little bit of wandering off into some other areas of things that have been changed in the platform. So outputs are only added if you assign them a token name. Hope that's clear. Like I say, it's going to affect a few of you, but probably not very many. So those are the 3 breaking changes that we've identified in this release. And so now we can talk some about new features. One of the biggest new features is workflow contracts. And I believe that in our various low-code cafes that we've shown this over time, but also I'll touch on it very quickly. Under workflows, in addition to seeing all your workflows listed, you now see contracts. So contracts are a definition that it's a set of inputs and outputs that workflows that use that contract must conform to. And so, for example, if we have a contract called machine usage, any workflow that falls under this category must provide an hours used and a machine, and will automatically get these descriptions as well. And anything that uses the machine usage output contract must also return a remaining life output. It can return more, it can accept more, but it must conform at least to the minimum of that contract. So if you have the contracts feature, and this is an enterprise level feature, so not all of you will have access to it, you also can see which workflows are connected to this feature. And so I have one called one called main machine used, another workflow called other machine used, and those workflows use this contract. So let's see what that looks like. If we go to, and I could also click right here. Actually, I'll do that. You can open the workflows that are connected to this contract just directly by clicking. So this is opening that workflow. And this brings us to another thing. We've rearranged on workflows. And by the way, we've done a lot of work on workflows. We'll be talking about workflows a great deal today. So if you've used workflows at all, you can see now we used to have 3 tabs: input, process, and output. And then we had all our settings grouped up here, and it was we rethought this and made it look much like the rest of our product. So we now have a settings tab, the place where you put in the name of the workflow. You can describe the workflow, how to connect it to a namespace. Again, this cleans up some pop-ups that used to be there. If you want to manage your namespaces and create a new one or pick a different one, you can do that as well. But here is the new contract field. So this is the thing that says that the main machine used workflow is connected to the machine usage contract. When you connect it to a contract, you get as inputs and outputs that come from the contract. So we have hours used and the machine, and notice that they're not enabled. You can't change the input and output parameters that are related to the contract. That you must provide those as part of this working on the workflow. And the just kind of the big scope of all of this is workflows being able to have different workflows that do different things under different circumstances, but they by having this contract ability, it says that the workflow is designed to handle that role of dealing with whatever machine used contract is about. Anyway, I almost feel like I've almost explained that, but there is an episode of Low-Code Café out on YouTube that dives into this at an even greater level. So with those inputs and outputs, they're automatically part of your workflow. You can add other ones, and those are enabled, and you can work with them, and you can rearrange those to however you want. But the ones that come from the contract are, the order is determined in the contract, not in the workflow itself. So that is a major feature. It's very useful when you're building bigger systems that have some dynamic capability. And so you'll see that again under workflows contracts. Along the way here, I'll just mention we have each of these each of these contracts are have an ID showing here. It's a nice long GUID, and so places where you're trying to identify a contract, maybe in a when you're trying to use some of our more dynamic options, you might need this ID. This is one way to get it to copy and paste it off of the contracts. So that's workflow contracts. So another feature, and Bogdan just hit on it really quite a bit. We have this starter and developer plans. Starter plan, it's just intended to be a lower price point with a subset of our features, and you can definitely build simpler applications without on the starter plan as you trying to do more advanced things. You might need a higher plan, but it's definitely a very functional starting spot that has some of our more popular products like what used to be Action Form and Action Grid, Tabs Pro, things like that. We have a new feature, the file manager, and it's listed as experimental, but it's here on our configuration menu. It's called Files. And so the same things that you could do under the DNN site assets, it's a nice integrated feature. It's not a replacement for that feature, but it is a nice integrated feature where you can see the folders in your path. You can upload and create and download and delete, definitely manipulate all of the file system associated with your site. So nice convenient feature. There are a whole new set of actions to dynamically create connectors. So in any we can do this in we'll do a new workflow, and I'm just going to skip right on to doing processing, but there's this whole connectors section, and for example, you can create an IMAP connector or a POP3 connector or a Stripe connector dynamically. And so if programmatically you need to be able to connect to an IMAP server, you can collect the credentials necessary and then use this to create it. Previously, we had in our connectors the ability to manually create a connector like an IMAP, and you do it interactively and fill in the blanks. But now you have the ability in workflows. Let's see if I get the right one, or in any place where you can do an action. Actually, I was looking at, I think, at the wrong one, but connectors, there's this add connector is the new generic action, and so you can add one just like you were doing interactively. Now you can create one through programmatically, provide the name and the values and the properties, and all those would create. There's a simple feature that it easily replace and update your license. So if you look at the General tab, there is this reactivate button. Normally, when you start out with Plantain app, you show up in a state that looks like this, where it says it's not licensed. If you need to change your license, which isn't a big frequent occurrence, but if, for example, you started the starter plan just to try us out, and then you decide that you want the full plan and you want to go to enterprise, you could click that button, the reactivate, and it would bring you into the dialog where you could choose your new higher license. So that's a small, simple feature. Here, this one ought to be fun. Ability to restore workflows from versioning, experimental. So what this is, if we have our version control feature, and this when it's set up correctly, and I've already gone through the setup steps, and I can send you the link to show you how to set this up. But when you do a commit of it, when you run the commit changes, or if you do a full site commit, the changes that you've identified, the low code, for example, the workflows and everything else, are sent to Git. And previously, you could examine your Git account and see that content and do some manual comparisons. But now we have the ability to restore. So since I've done a initial commit and subsequent commit, there is the ability here. It's to look at previous versions, experimental. When you click it, it will show you all the versions that are out on your Git account. So you can either restore to that version or restore it as a new workflow. So let's do that. Quite simply, we'll restore it as a new workflow. And so now we'll have the two versions side by side. So now we have run echo and run echo copy. And if we look at it, we can see exactly. So for example, in my copy, I had it in the state where there was no output, versus if I looked at the one from that we were just looking at a minute ago, I've modified it to have an output value. So you would be able to look at them side by side and decide, maybe see your changes, if you made a mistake in the workflow. And again, it's based on the things that you've committed. So if you've committed it to the versioning, you're able to get it back. If you're not using our versioning, then that feature doesn't apply to you. We talked previously in several different forums about our new DNN installer, and I'll just mention it here. This installer, if you want to create an on-premise installation of Plantain app, so long as you're whether you're starting from a version of DNN that has, it could be a fresh install of DNN, it could be one that you've been running for years. So long as it meets some certain minimums, you can run the DNN installer. And this is built especially for people who've previously used our older DNN Sharp modules like Action Form, Action Grid. It brings everything up to date in one step and starts you out on a DNN, a most recent version of DNN. So it upgrades DNN at the same time, but also upgrades your DNN Sharp modules to the 1.27. So there's an upgrading guide, and if that applies to you, you can use it. You can also communicate with us. We'll help you through that. I was going through some of these, and some of them I wasn't sure whether we would demonstrate or just talk about. I'm going to focus on the ones that we want to show here at this point. So Bogdan mentioned the marketplace. It's marketplace.plantanapp.com. One of the places that comes into play, and let me bring up, I have a different Plantain app implementation, Plantain app setup here. This one is set up showing the starter plan. We've demonstrated this a couple times, probably the most recently 2 weeks ago in Low-Code Café. When you have the starter plan, the things that you have access to, like Action Form, Action Grid, you just go to work developing and you're good to go. The things that you don't have access to will have an upgrade icon on it. And when you click it, it will tell you that this feature is available with a license upgrade. So if you want to run SQL queries, you need to do that upgrade. And the upgrade will automatically take you to our marketplace. It'll describe exactly what you'll get if you decide to do that upgrade. We're pretty informal with this upgrade process at this point. You'll fill in a form, and it'll start a discussion with sales. And if you decide to go forward, we'll turn on the license manually. So it's something of a manual step to, and I'm stalling now, waiting for the site to wake up. But once you purchase the upgrade for that, then it's delivered to your site automatically. You'll be able to just update your license, and it will that upgrade flag will go away. You'll be able to use it. So this explains, for example, that I'm using the. I said that I was interested in SQL, so it's telling me all about the SQL and the benefits and why you want to do it and how to proceed, and you would just use that request quote button. There's in the marketplace as a whole, there's all of our different upgrades are available to take a look at. And so if you go into just the request quote, it will show you all the different ones that, and you can kind of browse around and see other features as well. So for example, there's the upgrading to the enterprise or the harvest, how to get a hold of the professional developer seat that Bogdan started to talk about and what's included in that. So you can browse around here in the marketplace and see that. If you do want to pursue a quote after you add it to the cart, just click request quote, and that'll send so that'll start the process. Make sure that we respond to you with that. So that's the little bit about the marketplace. Here's a nice one I'm very happy about from a support perspective. On the general tab of Plantain App, we used to have a flag that was indicating enable SSL. And in most cases, that flag either, that switch didn't accomplish a goal, or it actually could cause issues with the usability of your site. So we've just removed the switch. It no longer applies. So that's that will result in less support calls, and I appreciate that. Wanted to mention this one. Plantain App, DNN in its earliest versions had something called object qualifiers, which is an opportunity to put more than multiple portals in one database, actually multiple implementations of DNN into one database. And long ago, it was determined that that wasn't really a good pattern to use. I'm going to silence that. Give me just a second. Sorry about that. So this object qualifier, since DNN wasn't supporting it for new implementations, we, in some of our versions, didn't support it as well. And then realizing that some people coming from older versions of DNN might have this turned on, and that it's very hard to turn off once you've ever used it, that we decided to update our product to support this as well. So we now support it. If you have if you're doing an upgrade and you're using object qualifiers, you should be fine. But that should be a discussion that you can have with us and support what's supported, what's not. Bogdan already mentioned that when we send things to versioning, we're doing friendly names. Most of you, I don't think, are using our versioning yet, so that's may not be a big deal for you yet. We have a lot of these: improve consistency and usability. We're trying very hard to make all of the screens, that the administrative screens that you use within the product, to be the same, to have consistency, and so you're not seeing different things in different screens, like APIs versus entities versus workflows. So we've got a lot of consistency things and usability things that have happened. entity record source for dropdowns. This is a new one and quite easy to show. I have a, let me find one here. I've got a screen that's doing something completely different, but if I wanted to add a drop down for our for the cars, I have some cars here. The Chrysler and an F-150 is just an entity of cars. If I wanted to add that as a drop down, well, we'll open up our form and do that. So when we add a new field, it's a drop down. We previously, if you wanted to have a list of cars, you would have a data source, and there was no way, there wasn't the ability to select cars off this list, and most people would just do a SQL query, and then you could select out your cars from the database. What we've done now to make it so that you don't have to use SQL, there is this entity records choice. So you can say that you want entity records, and now you can pick out your entity that you want to pull them from. They're called cars, and we don't have to do any more than that. There's some other parameters if you want to change the sorting or do some selection. But if we do that much and then refresh the page, we now have cars. It's a drop down and it has our cars here listed. Kind of curious. I'm going to add a view button. This is something that I do in testing pretty frequently. So I'm going to add a view data button that just shows all my values. It's pretty easy to do. You can use the display error message mechanism and append all fields. And so now all of our information is going to be displayed on the screen. Again, this is just a quick debugging technique. So refreshing again, we now have a view data button. I'm going to pick a value here, Chrysler 300, and view data. And we can see the value is the ID of the car. By default, this is showing the ID of the car. So just to be aware of what you're going to get when you do a entity records type of entry. All right, so that's a nice new feature. Enhanced user interface for action parameters. Again, this kind of falls into that consistency category, and already kind of touched on. File upload support in server requests. So we have a server request action, and I'm again just going to kind of start a new workflow and take a look at that. The server request action, by the way, I'll just mention here, we have if you've ever used the server request action in the past, it's been renamed to server request obsolete. It's the older version of server request. And if you're using it, at some point it will be transitioned to just use this existing server request, and it'll go away. So anytime you're doing new development, I highly recommend that you use you avoid the ones that say obsolete and use the current functionality. So in the server request action, there are you're doing an HTTP method, which allows you to choose from get or head or post or put. The get method is not designed to do transfer of files, and so there's nothing here about files. There are some methods that are. So, for example, post is I think post is one that now file shows up, and you can add files that you're going to post to some site. This just helps to remove confusion. Previously the files was just showing up all the time, and then you're trying to use get with files and it doesn't work. So this makes it only appear on methods where it makes sense. So that's a little value improved. We're trying to clean that up. So certain things are visible only on post put or patch. We have another enhancement about our update process. We in previous versions, when you update from one to another or apply hotfixes, we didn't do a lot of control to ensure that everything got downloaded before we went to work. And now we're saying, let's get everything first and then install everything. And that is ends up being towards a more error-free experience for upgrades. So something behind the scenes, you won't see it, but it is something that we improved. Another one in that same area when you're doing updates is logging. When we try very hard not to force updates, but we do have a mechanism that if it absolutely must be done, we call it our minimum dependency update. We see it all the time on our side as the product is under development, but it's we try very hard never to show this screen to you because we don't ever want to force updates. But there have been one or two incidents over the years that it was very important from a security standpoint or otherwise to do a minimum dependency update. When you encounter this, we're now also doing a better job of logging. So it's we're still trying to avoid it, but when it happens, whatever work gets done is going to your system updates log. I want to mention, since we're on to logs, that those of you, you're probably very familiar with going to our log screen and seeing any errors that might have occurred. But there's this whole system area that we don't go to frequently, and that's the one that I was just talking about. There's a system updates log, and if you want to, you can click and download it and see what the content is. This is a kind of thing that when you're doing a support ticket that I might say, oh, I need to see the system updates log. You would download it and attach it to the ticket so that we could review it. Our updates page, we're integrating it with the marketplace. So when there are things that you've, for example, if you buy something on the marketplace, it will show as an available add-on to install. Depending on what kind of item that you bought in the marketplace. So an integration there on our updates page. Our new UI our new workflow builder UI. So when you go in and edit a workflow, doesn't matter which one here, we have a button up here at the top that is we have our legacy builder, but we're now defaulting when you come in, you're going to get the new experience, and it's possible to switch away to the legacy one. As we roll out new experiences, we try to have leave the older one in place for a while. So typically the new experience is called experimental. And then as it becomes stable, it's the default, which is where we're seeing now, and there's still a legacy one. In our next version, or in a version soon to come, we will remove the legacy builder and you'll only have one experience. But we want to be very careful to make sure that you have the ability to use the tried and true while still switching to the new and improved. So we have a functionality. This workflow import now respects the existing namespaces. This is just a case where when you use import workflow, previously, if you imported a workflow from one system to another, it would always show up in the default namespace, and now it'll show in the namespace that you would expect it to. If it was in the tests namespace, for example, it will show in the tests namespace. Again, more changes for aligning the experience in the workflow builder. We talked about the new settings tab in the workflow builder. That's where we moved everything to the settings tab instead of having it all bunched up here at the top. We've been seeing throughout this new change detection. So every time I try and click away from a workflow, it's asking me, hey, you're going to lose some work. Error messaging for workflow branch deletion. Well, what does this mean? If we look at something that has lots of branches in it, and for example, if I were to delete this connector, we start seeing a very good message that's saying this thing is not connected. And if we try and save it, it's going to say an element is not connected. Our messages were pretty bad previously. It wasn't telling you exactly why things were happening here in this builder experience. So we want to make sure that we're very clear. Everything like this, where you have like having something not connected into into a workflow, is an unsavable issue, and so we want to enable you to know what's wrong and then to fix it. Enhanced action search in the workflow builder. So this is if you were going to add an action, this is the search feature, and some of the versions that we've published in the past, we've done some fuzzy searching and trying to get all of the possibilities, trying to anticipate what it is that you want and make it very easy for you to find it. Some of that fuzzy search was a little bit too wide, and so it was presenting too many options. So we've toned it down again so that it's trying to hit a happy balance. So hopefully the search will enable you to find things better. You can always find everything by opening up the appropriate folder area and you get the complete list. But searching is often the fastest way to find something that you want to accomplish. So workflow parameters can now have default values even though they're required. So that's a nice features. Workflow action editor for usability. What is this? Disabling the escape key and clicks outside the pop-up. This is a very good one. So if I try to edit something here, and previously, if I were in earlier versions, if I were to try and click outside here, I could end up getting this window closed, and then it's unclear were my changes saved, were they not saved. So in here now, also I'm tapping the escape key, nothing's happening. You have to choose either to apply your changes or to cancel your changes, and so it's very clear that either your changes are applied or not applied, and so that's very helpful. We've been looking at workflow test input values are being saved. So one of the beauties of workflows is that you can test discrete portions of logic and get them right and then consume them elsewhere, much like subroutines. And when you have test values that save, you can work on a particular case and input those test values into the workflow, as we were doing here on my Echo workflow, and it still remembers the last version of what I tested so that I can run it again. So just a simple enhancement to make things faster. So I'm going to skip forward at this point. There are many, many more. Well, we're almost to the end of the list, but so I'll maybe talk about a couple more. We already talked about workflow parameters showing up so that you can tell what you're inputting and outputting. We've enhanced logging in forms. The phone field library has been updated, and so you can do some new things with it if you use the phone field. Definitely want you to take a look at that. We cleaned up some things on Tabs Pro. There was actually a container type that it was never intended for you to use, and so we no longer offer it for you to use, and therefore we see skip the errors that were related to that, and some changes on user management. So I'm going to let you go through those. I want to leave enough time to tell you how to participate in the beta. There's a whole stack of bug fixes that may or may not apply to you in that area. There's a security enhancement, and we found an issue where it was possible to be in a circumstance where unauthenticated file downloads could have been performed. So we encourage you to apply the new release to avoid that security issue. There were some cosmetic things that were changed. Obsolete things tend to be of interest to developers, so we'll spend a minute on those. I already mentioned the server request action, so use the non-experimental one, or excuse me, use the non-obsolete one. We're removing a GitHub credential connector type because it was from an outdated implementation of versioning, so we no longer use that. When HTTP custom token type is now marked as obsolete and will be removed in a future version. And then there's another reports action, a very old action form action where you can save whatever your form values were saving in the database. We've marked this as obsolete because there's much better patterns, including using entities to store your data. So make sure that if you have older use of the product, that you take a look at those obsolete things. All right. So how can you participate in the beta launch? Well, there is a page here on the community website, the 127 beta, and we'll take a look at it in just a second. But if you want to participate in the beta, it tells you how to do that. There's a link to the website to all the things I was just showing you, and then an ability to give feedback. So let's take a look at that. The page is, if you have and anyone can sign on and get an account on our community.plantanapp.com. There is a 127 beta page that's listed there as the top level menu options, and you'll get here. The beta is available, and if you want to see what's new, you can click this link and it will open the release notes. This is actually pointing for right now to a private copy of our documentation, so it'll eventually be made public. But everything that I was just going through a minute ago, that full list is there, all the breaking changes and bug fixes. You can see everything that we've been doing. While we're here, I'll just point out too that since we released version 126, and we did a very good job of just telling you what you got when you signed on to 126, we've issued a lot of hot fixes. And so if you want to know what changed between version 126 and now, these things are listed as in our hot fixes, and you're getting them, all of these things, as part of 127 as well. So doing a much better job of showing you all the things that are out there. Okay, so that's how to learn what's new. I'm sorry, let's go back to our 127 beta page. If you want to participate, send an email to this address, product@plantanapp.com, and depending on your scenario, we'll get you started with the beta. And I'll talk about scenarios in just a second. But once you have access to version 127, if you noticed anything that isn't working for you or you don't understand, you can come in here and click the Add Feedback button, and your feedback and those of anyone else testing the version, we're going to show on this version 127 beta page. So you can also look and see what other people are encountering. We've already have one report of something that used to be there and isn't there now. And so just kind of getting a starter here, you can see what it's going to look like when you add feedback. So you can just give it a title, fill in the blanks on a blank sheet of paper, whatever you want to tell us, and whether you consider it minor or critical or someplace in between. and you'll be able to submit that to us, and we'll take a look at those and help us to make it better. I mentioned scenarios. So the easiest one is you can try version 127 on our infrastructure. You can do that by, and we'll be happy to guide you through all of these things. But if you go to the My Apps page and create a new app, it will ask you what version you want, and you can choose beta, and you'll get the version 127 beta instead of the stable version, which is 126. So just choose beta and you'll have it. But you might also want to upgrade, and we can help you with that. We have to flip a switch on the back end to allow your application to upgrade. So just communicate with us, and we'll have a discussion what URL is it that you want to try it out on. And then finally, if you want to do an on-premise installation, we can make sure that you get a hold of the DNN installer and the instructions for that. You can just install that and get to 127 as well. So lots of ways to do that. We are coming to the end of our time. Don't want to rush anyone, but we do want to thank you for showing up and listening to us for an hour tell about this new next phase for Plant an App. If you have any questions, I'm happy to hang around here and answer them, but y'all have been pretty quiet so far. So I use the chat. Oh, there was one. Clarify the duration of the trial period for the platform. Does the trial include access to all features, or are functionalities restricted? So to that, I would say that the standard trial period is 7 days, and when you start a trial, you can choose whether you want to be a part of the starter plan or the harvest plan or the enterprise plan. And so if you choose the higher level plans, you can your trial will be virtually unrestricted. If you choose the starter plan, you'll be restricted to the starter plan features. By default, it's 7 days. You're welcome to work with us on support. We're happy to extend that if you need additional time to try it out. And Bogdan, I see you jumped back on. If I have misled at all, or you have more to add to that, I'd be happy for you to take it on.
No, I think you covered it correctly. But of course, the trial, it's about evaluation, not about development. And with these new developer plans, we created it especially for situations like this. If you plan to do the development on a trial, probably it will be better to have a developer plan, because then you'll have full support from us. You'll be able to create multiple environments, not be restricted by the expiration and so on.
Yeah, and we didn't even touch on, there's some ability to have non-production environments in some of those plans as well. So having a development environment that's non-production, and then also, I mean, there's some capabilities there that we didn't previously have. So, any other questions? And while anybody's thinking about those, Bogdan, were there any things that I mean, I skipped past a lot of stuff. Is there anything that we really should call attention to, or just encourage people to participate in the beta?
Yes, I think it would be great to have as much feedback as possible, because this, of course, helps us find those things that we haven't thought of, to make it, to fix them, to address them, to make it better for everyone, and make it part of the official release when we get there. So really appreciate you jumping in and trying it out.
The internal discussion is that this we hope to have the final release by the end of April, subject to change, but that's our internal planning. And then do show up if you're interested, pay attention to the next episode of Low-Code Campfire. We have some announcements about how we're going to be restructuring a little bit internally, so that we can both provide better stability for you for your production environments, but also move a little bit faster on getting some new features into the product. So that'll be a discussion I hope to have on Friday. Since there are no other questions, let's call it here. Again, I do appreciate that you've spent your hour with us, and if you have any feedback for us, we would love to hear it specifically about the beta, but this release as well. And we will do another episode again of the Low-Code Cafe in 2 weeks, Low-Code Campfire 2 days from now. Thanks, everyone.